The thing about these old 90s CATIII films is they make me feel way less self-conscious about my sweating habit. It's nice to see a film where the characters probably have a worse smelling gooch than myself. Today I'm reviewing a film from Hong Kong that's a Category 3. By the way, for people who don't know, that's not a genre. Category 3 is simply a rating. Think of it as the NC-17, but for Hong Kong cinema. Also, this title is quite misleading since nobody in this has a goddamn PhD. And yes, that was my first joke of the video. It's gonna be a long one. I've had a long week. And when I was first watching this the other day, I thought to myself, whoa, this looks like kind of inspired by The Untold Story, only to find out that this came out first. I was like how the kids like to say, shook. Am I cool, Gen Zer? You little zoomers on your interwebs? Am I cool? No? Talk about porn? Fucking hate my life. The film starts and already it's a sweaty movie. The set design is quite incredible in the way that it makes you already feel uncomfortable. The first scene we get is of course with kids being kids. And by that I mean a total fucking nuisance. One of the kids tell the other kid to pull down his sister's pants for 20 cents. Which of course he can't say no because he's a kid and he doesn't have the concept of money yet, and he does exactly that. But he gets caught and berated by his aunt. Later that night, because the kid wasn't weird enough, he peeps on his aunt and her boyfriend making sweet, sweet love. Which of course he gets caught and he gets thrown into the broom closet. Which in no way is gonna cause a lot of trauma and build to an adult that will kill several women. I don't need a psychology degree to figure that one out. We then see the opening title, which is quite creative. We can see that our kid has turned into an adult. Not a very well adjusted one, but an adult nonetheless. He is a taxi driver. We then cut to a photo lab developing pictures of dead women, which of course triggers the police to start to ask questions. And since this is a film from Hong Kong, you have a bunch of cops. Are they good? No, again, this is a film from Hong Kong from the 90s, and they're bumbling, stumbling idiots. Kind of like in Untold Story, or a Police Story, or any real film with police in them, they're always quite the imbeciles. Which is actually kind of realistic. They go to a Kodak building to look at the picture of the previous night, which are of course the dead women. The cops are asked to stake out the building just in case the person who took these pictures comes and picks them up. And again, since they're a bunch of dummies, instead of, doing their job, they're just playing poker in their car. Hong Kong's finest. The taxi driver comes up to pick his photo and of course gets arrested. He says he's picking them up for someone else. I'm proud of our taxi driver. I'm pretty sure the police never heard that one before. And that entire scene reminded me of when I used to watch To Catch a Predator. My favorite guy was the guy that came into the house, and then Chris Hansen is like, "What are you doing here?" And he answers, "Well, I was just going to the beach and happened to stumble in the house with a 14-year-old girl that was alone. I also brought Mike's Hard lemonade, but that's unrelated, I like to drink my Mike's Hard on the beach. I didn't want to fuck her." The police of course go to the dude's apartment where they meet the father. The guy's father gets really excited, he starts to yell at the police, and because of that, he gets a good old-fashioned police beating. Good to see that that's not just a good old Western tradition, and we actually spread that around. The cops then open the drawer of our guy and they find a bunch of pictures, acid, and books about dissecting bodies. When they get to the station, of course they want to interview our taxi driver. And by interview I mean beat his ass. They beat him. And they do the same for the rest of the family except for his sister, because they didn't believe in true gender equality. We then learn more things about our taxi driver and how much of a good guy he is. Like when they interview his father, we find out that he molested a girl in 1975. Eventually, the police gets tired of beating the taxi driver's ass, and they decide to let his family do the deed. When his family is sent to the interview room, they of course beat him. I guess they learned from the police. Also, I mean, it's a good way to get information. If you just keep beating someone, he'll eventually confess. The police then interrogate him by showing him pictures of the victims. And that's when the film turns into the film you guys were probably expecting. A lot of these films, I'm including Untold Story in that because it was obviously inspired by Dr. Lamb, play out like police dramas until the very end. In this film, it's about the 45-minute mark, where we get flashbacks to how our psychopath killed all of his victims. And that's where these films get their reputation of being extreme or disturbing. If you'd only show me the first 45 minutes, I thought this was like an episode of CSI. A very good one, but still. The first thing we see in the flashback is our taxi driver having sex with a rather uninterested and very bored prostitute. Reminds me of how I lost my virginity. But he doesn't even get to, penetrate as he comes while she touches him. Don't judge, guys, that's normal. He's of course frustrated and picks up a girl in his taxi, and she doesn't seem to be having quite a good day. And she's quite unbearable. Now that doesn't make it okay for a guy to kill her, but I mean, I'm not totally against it. Eventually, she starts to puke in the taxi driver's car. As she passes out, you can see his frustration built up, and that eventually leads to him starting to choke her. He takes her body to the apartment and decides to practice his photography. But before that, he uses her as a human puppet. And I can't go into too much details, but let's just say that he goes nutty for the boobie. And then he decides to experiment by chopping her up. But after he fails with a hatchet, he goes to a hardware store to buy a saw. It's just like how my grandfather used to say, "Sonny, when you have a corpse, you go buy a saw, chop her up, you don't need a fleshlight anymore." Miss that man. He then disposes of the parts by throwing them into the river. Then we go back to the interview, which we'll see a lot in the last 45 minutes of this film, and our taxi driver tells the police that these women deserve to die because they were bad women. And then in a weird scene, our taxi driver is brought back to his apartment and he's asked to play out his murder with the female police officer as the victim. That seems like an HR nightmare. He then of course goes back to the office, which I'm still wondering why that scene just happened, where he describes another murder. And you can see that our taxi driver really likes to take advantage of drunken women. What is he now, a college athlete? He again chokes her to death, but this time he tries his dissection in a more professional way. He has a scalpel, some of his gloves, but he's pretty much still a rookie because he misses out his cut. Like all of our hobbies, dude, it just comes with a lot of practice. And then we see another victim and he's slowly starting to get better at his craft. The final victim will be this young college graduate. At first, our taxi driver doesn't want to kill her because she's young and innocent. So instead of not killing her, he just kidnaps her and then tells her that he doesn't want to kill her, which is the best way to make a woman comfortable around you. She of course tries to escape our lovely Hong Kong Travis Bickle, but he's having none of that. She kicks him and that slows him down. However, he will sadly catch up to her. We then go back to the police station where they discover that our taxi driver not only murdered 4 women, but he filmed all of his despicable acts. Earlier in the film, they're like, he has a very high IQ, but the man kills 4 women, films all of it, and then takes pictures and leaves the acid in his room, and he also buys books about dissection. The man has the IQ of a 5-year-old. And then the final sequence of the film is quite unsavory, so I can't describe it too much, but let's just say that he had a lot of fun with the college graduate. Not while she was alive, though. That would be too sane. So, what are my thoughts on Dr. Lamb? Holy shit, I love this film. Honestly, I haven't talked a lot about Category 3 films on my channel, again because it's not really a genre, it's just films that happen to have a lot of sex and a lot of violence, and I'm kind of regretting it right now because I could have been talking about these types of films for a while. They're like the Hong Kong equivalent of the Pinku films, except like I said, they're very sweaty. This one, like I said, the first 45 minutes are kind of slow and you really kind of have to wait out these parts, you know, the CSI kind of police show parts, but at the end, holy shit does it get bloody. And I also think our main guy does such a great job at playing this weirdo sweaty psychopath that it just makes the movie so much better. And honestly, I understand why this is considered as a Hong Kong extreme film classic. I had never seen it before and I'm glad I did. It's now available on Blu-ray for the first time and it's fully uncut feature length thing. Don't know the word. Again, I'm a bit dumb, just like the police in this movie. And by the way, this is not sponsored by Unearthed, I'm just saying because this is a great film and Unearthed is a great company. When they release these types of movies, you should all go out and support them if you're interested in the film, of course. Like always, don't just buy movies because I tell you to, even though I don't really tell you to. I'm getting confused, it's been a long week. But even if you just want to stream it, I think that's available. Just watch this movie, it's great, it's bloody, it has good gore, it has the sweaty Hong Kong feeling, and the characters are hilarious, and holy shit is there a lot of police brutality. A lot. Guantanamo Bay has nothing to do with these officers. Anyways, thank you for watching, and see you guys next time.